Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
Qui fecit
Acts of the Magisterium. We left off on page 11, on paragraph 24. So let's take it from the top again. Anthony?
This indeed is all the greater because rulers, in the midst of such threatening dangers, have no remedy sufficient to restore discipline and tranquility. They supply themselves with the power of laws and think to coerce, by the severity of their punishment, those who disturb their governments. They are right to a certain extent, but yet should seriously consider that no power of punishment can be so great that it alone can preserve the state. For fear, as St. Thomas admirably teaches, is a weak foundation, for those who are subdued by fear should on occasion arise in which they might hope for immunity, rise more eagerly against their rulers in proportion to the previous extent of their restraint through fear. And besides, from too great fear many fall into despair, and despair drives men to attempt boldly to gain what they desire.
Okay, footnote here. He's quoting St. Thomas Aquinas on the government of rulers. Okay, go on.
That these things are so.
Louder.
That these things are so, we see from experience. It is therefore necessary to seek a higher and more reliable reason for obedience, and to say explicitly that legal severity cannot be efficacious unless men are led on by duty and moved by the salutary fear of God. But this is what religion can best ask of them. Religion which by its power enters into the souls and bends the very wills of men, causing them not only to render obedience to their rulers, but also to show their affection and goodwill, which is in every society of men the best guardian of safety.
Yes, so religion keeps thieves from stealing. Because of what? What about religion? The true religion.
the laws of God.
The laws of God. If they don't love God, at least what will keep them from stealing?
The fear of hell.
Fear of hell and judgment, yes. That's a huge, deterrent for many crimes. So St. Ignatius says in the exercises of St. Ignatius, Lord, if the love of you will not keep me from sin, may at least the thought of hell keep me from sinning. So hell is real, we can go there, we will be judged, so that when people hear this and truly believe this, it brings much good. And it's the fact. And look, many souls are in hell precisely because they didn't fear God, they didn't fear hell. 25, paragraph 25, Michael.
For this reason, the Roman pontiffs are to be regarded as having greatly served the public good, for they have ever endeavored to break the turbulent and restless spirit of innovators, and have often warned men of the danger they are to civil society. In this respect, we may worthily recall to mind the declaration of Clement VII to Ferdinand, King of Bohemia and Hungary. Quote, in the case of faith, your own dignity. In the cause of faith, your own dignity and advantage, and that of other rulers, is included, since the faith cannot be shaken without your authority being brought down, which has been most clearly shown in several instances. Unquote. In the same way, the supreme forethought and courage of our predecessors have been shown especially of Clement XI, Benedict XIV, and Leo XII, who, when in their day the evil of vicious doctrine was more widely spreading, and the boldness of sects was becoming greater, endeavored by their authority to close the door against them, and we ourselves, have several times declared what great dangers are impending, and have pointed out the best ways of warding them off. To princes and other rulers of the state, we have offered the protection of religion, and we have exhorted the people to make abundant use of the great benefits which the church supplies. Our present object is to make rulers understand that this protection, which is stronger than any, is again offered to them, and we earnestly exhort them in our Lord to defend religion and to consult the interest of their Lord, to defend religion and to consult the interest of their states by giving that liberty to the church, which cannot be taken away without injury and ruin to the commonwealth.
Yes, so anyone summarize what the Pope is saying in that paragraph? What's he basically saying?
That the popes need to be acknowledged for all the work that they've done to hold together human society in the state, and the state needs to be thankful for that. That the only way that they are going to see true peace and prosperity in their nations is to take up the defense of the true religion and to promote it and everywhere defend it at all costs.
Yes, yes. And better if the state proclaims the true religion. That's even best. And the peace, harmony, prosperity it brings far outweighs the chaos, anarchy, and disorder of the rejection of Christ the King. So, the great Cardinal P, anyone remember his words? If Christ will not reign by the benefits that come from his reign, acknowledging his social kingship, then society will suffer the consequences of disaster, destruction, and ruin by the absence of his reign. Right? So, look at the modern governments, just all falling to pieces. Europe invaded by Muslim young men, and they're ready for war. They're ready for jihad once they declare it. And they came in boldly into Germany, Italy, France. We're taking over. They've said it. We're going to take over. And they've burnt many Catholic churches now, and they're coming into the U.S. and Canada. And they believe in the Quran. This is the foolish idiocy of liberalism. You know, they just pretend like everyone's nice and sweet and means well. Well, the Quran says kill the infidel. And if they're Christian, torture them. Torture them. And they have ways of torture as well. So, so you have Pope Francis, shamefully defending the invasion of Europe. When popes before called armies to go fight the Muslims, here we have these modernist popes opening all arms to receive them. It's just blindness and liberalism. Because they have a definite agenda, the Muslims. It's always been repeated in history. You take over and kill the infidel, or at least enslave them. So Archbishop Lefebvre, before he died, he actually gave a talk saying in France, they're going to start prostituting your children, they're going to start kidnapping your daughters, they're going to start taking over. And some group of Muslims wanted to take him to court over that, but he died before. 26, read on, please, Guadalupe.
The Church of Christ, indeed, cannot be an object of suspicion to rulers, nor of hatred to the people, for it urges rulers to follow justice, and in nothing to decline from their duty, while at the same time it strengthens and in many ways supports their authority. All things that are of a civil nature, the Church acknowledges and declares to be under the power and authority of the ruler. And in things whereof, for different reasons, the decision belongs both to the sacred and to the civil power, the Church wishes that there should be harmony between the two, so that injurious contests may be avoided. As to what regards the people, the Church has been established for the salvation of all men, and has ever loved them as a mother. For it is the Church, by the exercise of her charity, which by the exercise of her charity has given gentleness to the minds of men, kindness to their manners, and justice to their laws. Never opposed to honest liberty, the Church has always detested a tyrant's rule. This custom, which the Church has ever had, of deserving well of mankind, is notably expressed by St. Augustine when he says that, quote, "The Church teaches kings to study the welfare of their people, and people to submit to their kings, showing what is due to all, and that to all is due charity, and to no one injustice." End quote.
Yes. Charity and justice. Those are the two guardrails that keep a good government good. Charity and justice. And then the last, second to the last paragraph, 27 of this encyclical. Read on, Perrin.
For these reasons, venerable brethren, your work will be most useful and salutary if you employ with us every industry and effort which God has given you in order to avert the dangers and evils of human society. Strive with all possible care to make men understand and show forth in their lives what the Catholic Church teaches on government and the duty of obedience. Let the people be frequently urged by your authority and teaching to fly from the forbidden sex, to abhor all conspiracy, to having nothing to do with sedition, and let them understand that they who for God's sake obey their rulers render a reasonable service and a generous obedience, and as it is God who gives safety to kings and grants to people to rest in the beauty of peace and in the tabernacles of confidence and in wealthy repose. It is to him that we must pray, beseeching him to incline all minds to uprightness and truth, to calm angry passions, to restore long wished for tranquility to the world.
So, who is he saying this to? For these reasons, venerable brethren, your work will be most useful and salutary if you employ with us every industry and effort to avert the dangers and evils of human society. Who's he talking to?
The bishops.
Always the bishops. The popes used to, command the bishops, do your duty, look after souls, teach the faith, sanctify, govern with charity and prudence. That used to be. But now these spineless popes and spineless bishops have been the curse for the whole world. They're dead scared to preach against abortion, something so simple and obviously evil. 28, that we may pray with greater hope, let us take as our intercessors and protectors of our welfare the Virgin Mary, the great Mother of God, the help of Christians and protector of the human race. Saint Joseph, her chaste spouse, in whose patronage the whole Church greatly trusts, and the princes of the apostles, Peter and Paul, the guardians and protectors of the Christian name. Given at St. Peter's in Rome, the 29th day of June, 1881. The third year of our pontificate, Leo XIII. pope. So this is early in his pontificate. So he's calling the governments to see the benefit of the Catholic Church, working with the Church, work with her and not against her, and beware of seditions, and who would be the main conspiratorial arms causing sedition?
The Freemasons.
Freemasonry. So Pope Leo XIII, 7 years later, he'll issue the encyclical on Freemasonry, condemning it. Because it'll become very clear the dirty work of the Freemasons. So that's the encyclical Diuturnum of Leo XIII, Diuturnum Illud. And here, Anthony, pass. We're going to move on to this one. On Holy Virginity, Pope Pius XII. Pope Pius XII encyclical on Holy Virginity. And if you go right to the very back, given at Rome at St. Peter's, March 25th, feast of
The Annunciation of the Blessed Virgin Mary.
what year?
1954.
In the 16th year of our pontificate. So let me see, open up your first page. Let me see if it's the same. The next page over.
Where the encyclical.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Let's pick up, because this issue is a little different. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. All right, here we go. To our venerable brothers, the patriarchs, primates, archbishops, bishops, and other local ordinaries, in peace and communion with the Apostolic See. On Holy Virginity. Venerable brothers, health and apostolic benediction. Holy Virginity and that perfect chastity which is consecrated to the service of God is without doubt among the most precious treasures which the founder of the Church has left in heritage to the society which he established. So, who's the founder?
Jesus Christ.
What's the society he established?
The Catholic Church.
And he left chastity as one of its brilliant diamonds, gems. A whole race of chaste men by vows of celibacy, chastity, and women who make vows of holy virginity. This assuredly was the reason why the fathers of the Church confidently asserted that perpetual virginity is a very noble gift which the Christian religion has bestowed on the world. Because no other religion glorifies virginity and chastity, right? All the ministers of Protestants, Jews, Muslims, they're all married. And some have more than one wife. They rightly noted that the pagans of antiquity imposed this way of life on the Vestal virgins, the Vestals, only for a certain time. It's taken from St. Ambrose, De Virginibus. And that although in the Old Testament virginity is ordered to be kept and preserved, it is only a previous requisite for what?
Marriage.
Yeah, it was to prepare for marriage. And furthermore, as St. Ambrose writes in his work De Virginibus, Book 1, Chapter 3, we read that also in the Temple of Jerusalem there were virgins. But what does the apostle say? Now all these things happened to them in figure, that this might be a foreshadowing of what was to come. Read on, Anthony.
Indeed, right from apostolic times, this virtue has been thriving and flourishing in the garden of the Church. When the Acts of the Apostles say that Philip, the deacon, was the father of 4 virgins, the word certainly refers to their state of life rather than to their age. And not much later, Ignatius of Antioch salutes the virgins, who together with the widows formed a not insignificant part of the Christian community of Smyrna. The 2nd century, as St. Justin testifies, many men and women, 60 and 70 years old, imbued from childhood with the teaching of Christ, keep their integrity. Gradually, the number of men and women who had vowed their chastity to God grew. Likewise, the importance of the office they fulfilled in the church increased notably, as we have shown more at length in our Apostolic Constitution, Sponsa Christi.
Okay, so the Pope Pius XII here is showing this comes right from Christ, the invitation to virginity and chastity. And the fathers of it's right in the scriptures, St. Philip the Deacon in the Acts of the Apostles. It was actually a practice of the Old Testament in the temple, the Vestal Virgins, even among some pagans. But it was only for a time. And then he draws the authority of St. Ignatius of Antioch, St. Justin, St. Ambrose, who praise virginity. Further, the fathers of the church, such as Michael,
such as Cyprian, Athanasius, Ambrose, John Chrysostom, Jerome, Augustine, and many others, have sung the praises of virginity. And this doctrine of the fathers, augmented through the course of centuries by the doctors of the church and the masters of asceticism, helps greatly either to inspire in the faithful of both sexes the firm resolution and of dedicating themselves to God by the practice of perfect chastity, and of preserving thus till death, or to strengthen them in the resolution already taken.
Guadalupe.
Innumerable is the multitude of those who, from the beginning of the church until our time, have offered their chastity to God. Some have preserved their virginity unspoiled. Others, after the death of their spouse, have consecrated to God their remaining years in the unmarried state. And still others, after repenting their sins, have chosen to lead a life of perfect chastity. All of them at one in this common oblation, that is, for the love of God to abstain for the rest of their lives from sexual pleasure. May then what the fathers of the church preached about the glory and merit of virginity be an invitation, a help, and a source of strength to those who have made the sacrifice to preserve with constancy, and not to take back or claim for themselves even the smallest part of the holocaust they have laid on the altar of God.
Yes, so he's referring always here to that. It's a holocaust. It's a self-giving. It's a self-sacrifice. For who? For what?
For the love of God.
Yes. So after one's blood and life, really, that's probably the highest thing one can give. Because St. Thomas Aquinas says, God attaches pleasure to eating so that the individual may continue. He attaches pleasure, and a greater pleasure, to what pertains to the continuation of the human race. So that being, says St. Thomas Aquinas, the highest pleasure, to give that to God is a great thing. And that's the life of chastity, virginity. For the love of God. It's always love. You give yourself to Him. Like a chalice consecrated just for Mass. A man or woman gives their whole life just for Christ. Just for the Holy Trinity to dwell in. Just for the Virgin Mary to marry, so to speak. And while this perfect chastity is the subject of one of the three vows which constitute the religious state, and is also required by the Latin Church of clerics in major orders. What are the major orders, anyone?
Subdeacon, deacon, priesthood.
Yeah, so when one becomes a subdeacon, that's really his marriage day. That's when he gets married. He makes the vow of chastity. When he's ordained a subdeacon. He makes the vow of chastity and he promises to pray the breviary the rest of his life. So it's a huge step. It's a great step. And demanded from members of secular institutes, it also flourishes among many who are lay people in the full sense, men and women who are not constituted in a public state of perfection, and yet, by private promise or private vow, completely abstain from marriage and sexual pleasures, in order to serve their neighbor more freely and to be united with God more easily and more closely. So the Pope here is not saying that it's an easy sacrifice, but it is possible with the grace of God, and it is a great one. And many people in the world don't understand it. They just don't get it. Go on, Perrin.
To all of these beloved sons and daughters who in any way have consecrated their bodies and souls to God, we address ourselves and exhort them earnestly to strengthen their holy resolution and be faithful to it.
Yeah, so this is, what year is this? 1954. So by now there's movies, there's radio, there's magazines, and there's filth. There's impurity being spread already through these things in a bad way. Fashions, the 1950s miniskirts, that's already in vogue. So with the Pope seeing the decrease of purity, he's encouraging all nuns, priests, monks, stay faithful to your vows and see the precious pearl of great price is this holy chastity. Read on, Andres. However,
since there are some who, straying from the right path in this matter, so exalt marriage as to rank it ahead of virginity, and thus deprecate chastity, consecrated to God in clerical celibacy, our apostolic duty demands that we now in a particular manner declare and uphold the Church's teaching on the sublime state of virginity, and so defend Catholic truth against these errors.
what's the errors?
To rank marriage ahead of virginity, and
Yeah, so the error is to say the gold is marriage, religious life is silver. But the constant teaching of the Church is no, the gold is chastity, the gold is religious state. The gold is the priests, nuns, monks state of life. Second is marriage. Marriage is silver, not the gold. Yes.
it would also be an error to say that marriage and virginity are practically equal, right?
Yes. Yeah. One is higher. And this is why he wrote this, because of these errors. Probably because bishops started to teach this. Yeah, marriage is very holy, very sacred, marriage is great, marriage is gold, 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 to the detriment of the state of chastity. First of all, we think it should be noted that the Church has taken what is capital in her teachings on virginity from the very lips of her divine spouse. Go on, Anthony. For
when the disciples thought that the obligations and burdens of marriage, which their master's discourse had made clear, seemed extremely heavy, they said to him, quote, "If the case stands so between man and wife, it is better not to marry at all." End quote. Jesus Christ replied that his ideal is not understood by everybody, but only by those who have received the gift. For some are hindered from marriage because of some defect of nature, others because of the violence and malice of men, while still others freely abstain of their own will, and this, for the kingdom of heaven. And he concludes with these words, quote, "He that can take it, let him take it."
okay, so some are hindered from marriage because of some defect of nature, so they just can't get married, or they can't, for some reason, fulfill the purpose or duties of marriage. Others because of the violence and malice of men, such as when they used to make eunuchs, when they would take boys and do surgery to make them stay forever with high voices and no beards and look effeminate all their life with high voices. Wouldn't that be creepy? And then in the 1400s, the popes had to condemn the emphasis on music was so great that they wanted to castrate a whole bunch of boys to keep their voices high, because their singing of boys is a beautiful beautiful in a choir. So the church condemned that, of course. All, what do they call it? Mutilation. Self-mutilation is also sinful. So if someone wants to mutilate themselves, that's a sin. You cannot do that. So what our Lord is saying, there's going to be those who are eunuchs, virgins, for the kingdom of heaven. Willfully. Not by violence, not by pressure, but willfully out of love for God. He that can take it, let him take it. Michael?
By these words, the Divine Master is speaking not of bodily impediments to marriage, but of a resolution freely made to abstain all one's life from marriage and sexual pleasure.
Yeah, so what's the key words here? A resolution
Freely
forcefully made?
No, freely made.
Freely made.
Freely made. So it's very free. With our Lord, it's always free. It's an amazing thing, the respect he has of our free will. We can freely embrace and follow him, or we can freely turn our back from him. You see, he never forces. He never uses handcuffs. So, go on.
For in likening, those who of their own free will have determined to renounce these pleasures, to those who by nature or the violence of men are forced to do so, is not the divine Redeemer teaching us that chastity, to be really perfect, must be perpetual.
Yeah, so not just for a few years, but one's whole life. Guadalupe?
Here also it must be added that the fathers and doctors of the church have clearly taught that virginity is not a Christian virtue unless we embrace it for the kingdom of heaven. That is, unless we take up this way of life precisely to be able to devote ourselves more freely to divine things, to attain heaven more surely, and with skillful efforts to lead others more readily to the kingdom of heaven.
Yes. So it must be for the supernatural intention, and not just so I don't have to be bothered by a wife and children. And some people live single just because of that. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to have that worry and bothersome wife and children. But that's not supernatural. That's not a supernatural reason. And for most who give themselves to God, they could easily get married, easily enter the marriage state. But they go to God who has more, our Lord who gives more than any other spouse. Go on, Perrin.
Those, therefore, who do not marry because of exaggerated self-interest, or because, as Augustine says, they shun the burdens of marriage, or because, like Pharisees, they proudly flaunt their physical integrity, an attitude which has been condemned by the Council of Gangra, lest men and women renounce marriage as though it were something despicable, instead of because virginity is something beautiful and holy. None of these can claim for themselves the honor of Christian virginity.
Right, so he's saying some didn't want to get married because they wanted to flaunt their physical integrity and despised marriage for the wrong reasons. Moreover, Andres?
Moreover, the apostle of the Gentiles, writing under divine inspiration, makes this point. He that is without a wife is solicitous for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please God. And the unmarried woman, and the virgin, thinketh on the things of the Lord, that she may be holy in body and spirit.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 7:32. Yes. So those consecrated to God can give all to Him. All their time, all their talents, all their efforts. So this then is the primary purpose. Page 6. This the central idea of Christian virginity. To aim only at the divine. To turn thereto the whole mind and soul. To want to please God in everything. To think of Him continually. To consecrate body and soul completely to Him. So they're the freest. They're the freest. And he's probably going to say later what St. Paul says. Someone who's married, their heart is divided. They can't totally give everything to God. They have to take care of their wife or their husband and their children. They have to work to support the family. They have and do everything to keep the family going. You know, fix the tire, fix the windows, fix the roof, and give the children braces. Some of them might have allergies you got to treat. Some of them might need this, might need that. So these are all good things, but it's far better to give all to God, like a chalice. That's what he's defending this. This is a beautiful encyclical. It's needed, and it needs to be reread more than once. Read on, Anthony, loud and clear. This is the way.
This is the way the fathers of the church have always interpreted the words of Jesus Christ and the teaching of the apostles of the Gentiles. For from the very earliest days of the church, they have considered virginity a consecration of body and soul offered to God. Thus, St. Cyprian demands of virgins that, quote, once they have dedicated themselves to Christ by renouncing the pleasures of the flesh, they have vowed themselves body and soul to God, and should seek to adorn themselves only for their Lord, and please only Him, end quote. And the Bishop of Hippo.
Yeah, adorn Him. How do the nuns, sisters, adorn themselves for Christ? With more jewelry and makeup and rings and bracelets?
Simple habit.
Okay, a simple habit.
By growing more in the love of God.
Yes.
Virtues.
So they put on the earrings of listening to the Word of God. They put on the bracelets of good works. They put on the necklace of affection and love for Christ. They put on the perfume of living totally for Him in His glory and His intimacy with Christ in the Blessed Sacrament. And they put on the eyeshadow of keeping their eyes just for Him in the Blessed Sacrament, on the crucifix, on Our Lady, right? That's how they adorn themselves. So the beauty, the adornment of the soul, the jewelry on the soul is far more beautiful than that of the body, because the body will get old and wrinkled and all small and warped. Well, the soul of an old nun can be young and vibrant and like a child. Go on. Who's the Bishop of Hippo? Go on.
And the Bishop of Hippo, going further, says, quote, virginity is not honored because it is bodily integrity, but because it is something dedicated to God. Nor do we extol virgins because they are virgins, but because they are virgins dedicated to God in loving continence. End quote. And the masters of sacred theology, St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Bonaventure, supported by the authority of St. Augustine, teach that virginity does not possess the stability of virtue, unless there is a vow to keep it forever intact. And certainly those who obligate themselves...
We'll stop there. We'll pick up next time. Okay. Agitorium nostrum in nomine Domini.
We fetch each element.